Okay, good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. Thanks for joining Lawren and I for our third installment of Chocolate and Donut Chat here on a Friday morning. Our first installment was what we're learning, lessons learned, and things that are happening. Our second installment of our Facebook Live was how to negotiate a family business and a small family business, and we had a lot of really cool questions, and it was fun. And so we're back at it again. And what are we going to talk about this time, Lawren?
So this morning we're going to share some of our realizations, surprises, takeaways during this time of radical change. When we started thinking about these back in March, one of the topics that we had listed naively was things we're looking forward to when things go back to normal.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily things aren't going to go back to normal, and we'll actually talk about that in a little bit. Luckily, there's some major social justice uprising that's happening, and I don't think anyone wants anything to go back to normal, but we decided to adapt that topic and talk about just kind of what surprises and discoveries we've had both personally and professionally in the last few weeks, because I don't know about you or you all, but this has been a pretty humbling time, I think, of surrender, growth, acceptance, transformation, and all of that is still underway. For me, I think it's just the beginning. So be sure to submit your questions to us. Sometimes we get a few in advance, but we'd love to know what you want to talk about. So we'll get to them when we can, and certainly at the end of the broadcast. So please don't forget to submit your questions. Those of you that are joining us and don't have something more engaging to do on this Friday morning.
I mean, why wouldn't somebody want to join us? This is informative stuff. Oh, and by the way, if you're joining me from my YouTube channel, thank you very much. That thing is just blowing up. It's really hard to even subscribe. It's overloading the YouTube system because I think I might have 25 subscribers now. So I'm probably going to monetize that here shortly, but I digress. So of course, this all started with donuts, and you have your donut.
I do. I have a coconut donut. I have a chocolate donut. Donuts are important when you're 8 months pregnant. So I have lots of donut options.
Well, this all started, and for those of you who haven't joined us before, I like talking about this even if you've joined us before. But so every Saturday from when Lawren was probably 2 years old, we would go to the donut shop. And this is a picture of us at Supreme Bakery. And but we started doing this when she was 2, and then all the way until she left home, which was at 16. And it was really a special time for us. And we would do that and then go to the bookstore, go to the library or something like that. And so we thought we would sort of continue the tradition, despite the fact that, Lawren, you really pretty much look the same. On the other hand, no one would even recognize me, but those were really important days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we've missed each other during this time. I mean, we haven't seen each other much. I haven't been to the factory. It's, this has been challenging. So we thought, well, let's adapt this for the digital Corona age and have some catch-up sessions, talk about what's going on in our lives, and people.
Well, I don't have donuts, but what I have is a snack that I enjoy, and I've talked about it before. But I am taking our Mababu Tanzania, and if we have any time, I will talk a little bit. I'll give an update on Mababu if we have time for that. But what I do is I take a square of the Mababu. I'll probably drip this on my keyboard, and I put peanut butter on it, and then I eat it. And I just love peanut butter, so it's a snack that I enjoy. of course, we make peanut butter chocolate, but we've stopped making it for the summer.
Yeah, with the Tanzania, in fact.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, it's a snack I really love. And so before we get too far, I do want to ask, how are you doing? So you're due here shortly, and
yeah, doing really well. I'm in Austin. That's where I live, and it's getting warm here. We're officially in the hundreds, so I'm beginning to feel a little bit like a little bit like Jim Carrey in one of my not so secretly favorite movies, Ace Ventura, where he's in that rhinoceros and he's trying to get out in front of the family. It's getting a little hot in these rhinos is a little bit how I'm feeling here in Austin at this point, being 8 months pregnant in July.
mm-hmm.
I'm hanging in there, and luckily have a really great husband who provides me with iced coffee, which he so lovingly brought to me this morning, and that's helping. So
That's awesome. Well, we're counting down the days, and we have some awesome friends that are joining us. Ginger, hi Ginger. Benjamin, oh my gosh. Benjamin, when I met Benjamin, he was the buyer for San Francisco region Whole Foods, and I love following him on Facebook, and I love seeing pictures of him with his kids and his family, and he just said yum. He said yum about the peanut butter.
Yeah.
And there's Mandy and Ferris and Jim Hentz is just joining us. This is cool to see people from all over the country. My brother is in town, and I'll talk about that in a minute. This is a really special day. It's a beautiful day, but it's also a sad day, and we'll talk about that at the end. But my brother is in town, and he works for Dunkin' Donuts in Los Angeles and Hawaii. That's his territory. But he put a comment on here, Dunkin' Donuts, I can make that happen. But I don't have any Dunkin' Donuts here. He's literally 5 minutes from me now. He didn't bring any Dunkin' for me to try, right. Or you.
Yeah. No, this was a couple days ago. I was expecting like a box.
Yeah, a FedEx box or something of Dunkin' Donuts. But I would have definitely had some of those. But okay, anyway, so if you have questions, people have questions as we get toward the end, we'll try to take some of these questions. And so let's talk about our sort of first topic, and then we'll go from there.
So we felt like we would be remiss if we didn't start by addressing the social justice uprising that's taking place in our country right now. We've learned a lot these last few days about how we as a company can take greater action toward not just diversity and inclusion, but equity, pledging to do the work, to be an actively anti-racist company and prove that our commitment goes beyond performative allyship. And that's an ongoing process. And we look forward to continuing to share the steps that we're taking as a company and personally. This is a journey that I started many years ago and still have a very, very long way to go. But we're starting by attending courses and webinars by some really amazing Black women thought leaders. Yesterday, I attended an outstanding webinar that I truly can't recommend enough by Desiree Attaway, called Whiteness at Work. We're also in the middle of another workshop with Rachel Ricketts called Spiritual Activism. It's not just enough for us to talk about these things, though. We actually have to do them and do the work and listen and be careful not to jump into action too quickly. But at the same time, there's a responsibility to do that as well. So it's been a really transformative time.
Well, I'll say from my point, and I would echo what you've said, and what I have done is I asked my friend Ashton Gustafson, who's a student at the New Living School in New Mexico under Father Richard Rohr. I asked him about liberation theology, specifically Black liberation theology. And he recommended a book that, oddly enough, was in Richard Rohr's post on Monday by Barbara Holmes. And it's called Joy Unspeakable, Contemplative Practices of the Black Church. And so I've started reading that and trying to read other things and really taking to heart what you said, which is that we need to listen and listen before we act. Not that we don't need to act. Yes, we do. We need to take steps. We need to play our part in what we can do to help with these pressing issues that you've described. But we also need to learn. And one of the things that I've done, and I talk about this in the book, and I've talked about this in speaking events around the country, and that is what I would just simply call role reversal. And by that, I mean, what I try to do, for example, when I'm in, let's say, Tanzania, when I'm meeting with Mama Mpoki and her 60-member cooperative, is I try to prepare my heart to be the student always, not the teacher, not the great white savior coming in with all the answers, but to really be ready, just to be ready at any moment for there to be a dramatic role reversal in the case, so that I can be the student. And I've tried to take that idea forward to now, and can I just constantly put myself in the place of student? I'm the leader of this company. I'm the founder. I'm used to making all the decisions. I'm used to being confident, and it's important, I think, to be humble and to remember that we can really learn a lot and have our hearts transformed when we're ready for those kind of dramatic role reversals. The other thing I would say too is that there's Joe Patton. Oh my gosh, hey Joe, he was a client of my dad's a long time ago. And anyway, that's a whole other story. We should have him on the podcast and talk about what happened to him and Buff Lamb. Oh boy, yeah, that's a show right there. That would take more than 1 hour. But anyway, Lawren, it's been hard for me in the standpoint, and we'll talk about this toward the end of the show about lessons learned or lessons that we're learning and surprises. But of course, I was a criminal defense lawyer for 20 years, and I have a lot of experience when it comes to the criminal justice system, especially in serious cases. But you have taught me a lot about these issues because you've been reading about it and studying it for so long. And I think for a long time, I'm resistant to have you be my teacher, because, we've talked about this so many times. We talked about it last time, but for those of you who didn't join us before, it's just weird for me to think this little girl is like teaching me stuff, but it's true. It is true. And even just as recently as last week, and like, for example, you have said, well, Dad, you are racist. And, probably you said that last year. And I was like, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. And I resist that, and I especially resist it from you because it's like what we do with our own family. It's like our family can't be our teachers. I mean, but I'll listen to the, columnist who's written a story that I don't even know. But it's important, because I'm really coming to that recognition of what you say, and it's true. And it's hard. It's been hard for me to accept. I've resisted it.
It's hard for all of us, but it's, me as well. It's so important now more than ever. We've got an election coming up, and we need to be having these conversations with our family, with our friends, with our, colleagues, where possible. We need to be having a dialogue. We also need to be respecting the mental health of the, Black people in our lives and not asking them to do the emotional labor and the work for us on this. But, white people need to be having these conversations with one another and talking about this. It's critically important.
Well, and especially for me, because, I sort of fancy myself as an evolved person. And, I think to myself, oh, well, I'm doing a lot, and we are, doing a lot to perpetuate economic empowerment of communities of color. I mean, we're doing it every single place we buy cocoa beans. And so I think to myself, oh, well, okay, check to myself. But that's not it. This notion that you're talking about, these things that you've taught me about, this is not a static state. It's dynamic. I mean, it's not like you engage in one economic transaction or 10 economic transactions with farmers and people of color and think, oh, okay, well, I'm not behaving with implicit bias or racism, so I'm done. And it's just not the case. It's dynamic, it's moving, and it's every day, and it's moment by moment. And I get excited about this topic. So let's move on to the other topic, if you want. And by the way, we will continue to talk about this. As a brand, we'll talk about it on here. We'll continue being the people that we are. That's one of the things that we want to really emphasize here before we switch to the next topic is that we're going to listen, we're going to learn, and we're going to keep doing what we've been doing for the last 15 years with this company when it comes to economic empowerment in communities of color. But we're also going to, look to doing it here. Lawren, I hope it's okay if I mention this, but one of the things that she suggested last week was that we take a look at our vendors and suppliers. Is it okay if I?
Absolutely.
And so I then also talked with one of our Chocolate University alumni, African-American student who's in tech now, great job. And he said, he reiterated what Lawren said, and he said, why don't you have a supplier diversity officer? So that's what we did. So this week we have a person in our company who's responsible for monitoring every single supplier that we buy something from, and can we find a way to create diversity among our suppliers for African American owned businesses and businesses with Indigenous and people of color. And we're just gonna do it, and we're gonna keep moving down that road.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is a long term.
Yeah. So let's talk about the next topic.
Sure. So, again, we were hoping to discuss today, which, what we just talked about is one of these topics, but what are some of our biggest, there's your peanut butter on your Tanzania bar. What are some of our biggest takeaways from these last few weeks? Some of the things that have surprised us the most, some of the challenges and discoveries. And I know for us, as business owners and chocolate makers, there's been some pretty major changes to how we're operating our production. And you really have a lot of thoughts, and I think good advice for other entrepreneurs, even if they're not manufacturers, kind of about what we're doing and how we're adapting, because it's pretty significant for us.
Yeah. Well, we write about in the book something called reverse scale. When I say the book, I'm talking about this book. And you can buy it online or at your at indie bookseller or other places online. But anyway, meaningful work, and I think it's chapter 5 in this book. We're talking about reverse scale, and I'm not going to go into all of what reverse scale means. You might know from following us and reading about our business that we're a small company. We only have 18 people in the entire company, and a little bit, about half in production, and the other half in administration, accounting, and that kind of stuff, sales, marketing. And we've always been that way. And it's important for us to be a small company because of all of the benefits that we write about in the book that come from owning a small business and not scale, grow. So the benefits of that are manifold. That's not to say that there aren't tons of challenges. We talked about them in our last session. But one of the things that's happened with the corona is that we had to make sure above everything else that our production crew was safe. We only have 8 or 9 people in production, but it was important to me that we maintain safety first. So we shut our storefront. We don't have a storefront now. We'll talk about that on our channels later about opening kind of storefront or curbside. But I wanted to separate the shifts. And this was something that John Taylor and Brad came up with, our production manager. And so what we did is we took that 8 or 9 people and we broke them into 2 shifts, a Monday through Thursday shift, 10 hours a day, and then Friday through Sunday. And we made absolutely certain as best we could that there was no overlap between those in case somebody got sick, and to also keep people at a good distance. And so this has been easy for us to do. And unfortunately, though, it's made us less efficient in the way that we make our chocolate. And so we're making about 25 to 30% less chocolate using this method of production. And that, you could say, well, that's not good. And it isn't, but we're prepared for it. Why? Because we understand how to operate nimbly with a small team. And if we know what our goals are and we know what our responsibilities are, which are to keep people safe, that's our job, and as best we can, and with people coming to work and taking risk with this environment. And so we did that, and we can do that, and we can do it profitably. And it's forcing us to kind of make some decisions, and some really good decisions. And so, you have been the recipient of that less chocolate that you have to then distribute through the sales channels in this reverse scale model. So how have you, what kind of challenges has that brought to bear?
It's been really interesting because we talk about efficiency a lot as a company anyway, and productive capacity, and maximizing our beans that we have available. So in some ways, this isn't an unusual conversation for us, but in other ways, we were not expecting at the beginning of this year to be making 30% less chocolate, especially because we're growing and our demand is growing. So, however, we're planning very far ahead. So one of the ways that we're working to combat this is that we're already looking into next year. I mean, one of the reasons we're planning so far ahead is that I'll be taking, a few weeks of maternity leave. But we're literally planning into 2021 and looking at how do we maximize the chocolate that we have available in our higher margin channels. So that unfortunately means that we're having to say goodbye to some customers, some of whom I've worked with for a decade nearly. And that's been challenging and difficult for us and for them. We've had to have some difficult conversations with customers saying, we don't have the chocolate to provide to you right now. And we hope that we'll be able to again in the future. But luckily, we work with amazing companies that have been so understanding and supportive of the small batch nature of what we do. They get it. But we can't necessarily make the bulk chocolate that we used to make. So
just for our viewers, bulk chocolate, you mean ingredient chocolate?
Right, ingredient chocolate for really amazing ice cream makers, coffee shops, restaurants, people that are using our cocoa powder or our chocolate as an ingredient in something that they make and sell. So we've had to say goodbye to a few of those people because we're reallocating some of that chocolate into channels like wholesale and online, which is already locally, and we're so grateful, growing at an unprecedented rate right now. We were planning to ramp up our e-commerce business, and that's something that's been happening naturally. But we've been so shocked, really, at the rate at which we've seen this growth over the last 3 months for that channel. So we're being creative. financially with kind of how we're managing where we're selling our chocolate, and like I said, kind of the channels with the margins and making it work for this year.
I would like to say too, for viewers who are like, oh, wow, man, I feel really sorry for them making, 30% less chocolate. Here's what I have to say. Please do not feel sorry for us. We are not inviting you to a pity party. This is good, because what it means is we can be safe with our crew. We can be safe, and we can have this split shift schedule for a long, long time to come. We can make a whole lot less chocolate and be almost as profitable, that's what reverse scale is all about. And we can continue even making all this chocolate. One of the questions comes up: are you still going to have the feeding program in Davao, Philippines? Absolutely. It's already funded through the end of the 2021 school year. Are you still going to have all of the after-school programs in Tanzania with thousands of children around the village of Mababu? Yes, we are. Empowered Girls, Enlightened Boys. We haven't talked about the preschool, the Chekachea. That's opening back up in the next few weeks. All of that is still funded. It's still going on, still in place. It's just that what we're doing is we're kind of the old judo move where we're using the weight of our opponent to score a victory. And the weight then is essentially, we're saying to you, Lawren, hey, guess what? You have to achieve these sales with less chocolate.
Right. And this is also a great place to talk about how amazing our team is. During all of this, there's no way that we would be achieving the success that we are if it weren't for the very small, our sales team is 2 people. It's our sales director, Kat, who's, been with me for years, and, Rachel, our account manager. And then, on the retail side of things, Kaylin and Hannah. These are people that have adapted so well to these new challenges and are not only taking them in stride. Their creativity and their commitment and dedication to making sure, our customers are taken care of and communicated with is really what's making this successful.
That before we leave this topic, and you just talked about the team, and I would say to my fellow brother and sister entrepreneurs out there, if you are watching us, I don't know if you are, I know we have a few people watching, think about this for a minute, just as a suggestion. But what we did with some of the PPP, I don't know how many P's, 3, the triple P money that we got from the government, which we were one of the first recipients in our town. Thank you, State Bank, for helping us with that. But we took some of that money and we gave a bonus to our production crew, the people who are coming in, the ones that I was just saying are on a split shift now. And we decided to allocate some of that money for them. And I called the bank to make sure that it was forgivable as part of the PPP program. And they said that it was. And I got that idea from Ari Weinsweig, the co-founder of Zingerman's Deli, way back when the whole thing about payroll protection started coming into play. And so we did it. And, it's not huge, but it's a recognition of their effort. And so I would just encourage my brother and sister entrepreneurs and business owners to think about that. The forgiveness part of this application is coming up now. Hey, there's Chuck Overton, man, my best friend from junior high and high school. Ron Davis, no way. So anyway, I would just encourage, if you have any questions about that or something, just talk to your lender, and I think it'll work.
Yeah, that's great advice.
So do you want to kind of go to our next topic? Talking about other lessons learned?
Yeah. Well, this has been really interesting, I think, for both of us. One of the big realizations has been how successful working from home can be. Again, this goes back to our team, but deep engagement, it turns out, is possible when everyone is isolated and working from home. Our sales and marketing, our bookkeeper, our leadership teams, we're all working from home. None of us have seen each other, and you're going to eat a whole chocolate bar before
just 3 squares.
None of us have seen each other in months. And it's been shocking how well it's worked. I think part of it was having the right expectations at the beginning of this. We jumped into it and wanted, I think recognized the challenge for our team and did our best to give them the tools and resources that they needed to be successful. But it's also been an ongoing process of troubleshooting a lot of issues that have come up. But everyone's worked really well together. This is where over communication becomes critically important. We have people running credit cards back at the factory and talking to our sales team, that's across the city, or, me across the country. But Dad, I know this is something you've been really surprised by, because you've always been very, skeptical of work from home.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I'll admit it. I'm a control freak, exponentially to the 100th power, a control freak, and I just never really trusted these kind of things. I just didn't think it would be successful. Oh my gosh, it's just been a complete, transformation for me in that thought, because it absolutely works. And it's just one of the long list of things that I've learned from this. And as many companies have talked about, and, you can read thousands of articles now about work from home and pluses and minuses, and companies that are going to just basically do it permanently, big ones, big tech companies. But it's something we're talking about. And I'm absolutely 100% okay with it if we do this, into the future, as long as we have times, maybe once a week or every week and a half, where everybody can sort of congregate and have our staff huddles together, have lunch together, and, time for team building and that sort of stuff. Because I miss seeing everyone and, just talking about what everybody's watching on TV and stuff like that. And so, but I think it works, and I am so happy about it. And I wish I had been more trusting of this process long ago. There is no way when I was a lawyer that I would have ever thought about doing this. But if I was doing that now, I certainly would.
Yeah. We feel a lot more comfortable knowing that whatever happens, in the next few months, we've got a good plan in place and an excellent team in place, and we can make this work for
absolutely.
The long term.
Yeah.
Which, speaking about, missing people, that's been another discovery for me. I never really questioned whether I'm an introvert. I'm not. But, I so deeply miss my friends and coworkers at the factory, and, meeting with my, fellow board members at Girls Empowerment Network here in Austin. It has just been so challenging to not be in community with the people that are so important to me and so important to my husband and I, which you're showing a picture of something pretty special that happened a few weeks ago. So, my husband and I had some lovely people in our lives that were throwing us the baby shower. And that, of course, needed to get canceled. And this being our first pregnancy, we were disappointed about having to miss out on that. So in the last few weeks, it was something I'd been a little more sad about missing out on. And my amazing husband, Scott, managed to completely on his own pull together this drive-by, socially distant, yard hang baby shower for me. Completely surprised me. So there we are in front of our house. He literally brought out those pink velvet chairs from our house. That garland that you see is from our wedding. I didn't even know we still had that garland or where it was in our house, but he did. He strung it up on these poles, and he ordered these cookies and made, to-go margaritas for people. That's a big thing here in Texas.
Well, yeah, I want one. Like
and
now.
yeah, I wish I could have had one too. And it was probably the most meaningful day that, I've had in the last several months, was just having all of our friends stop by over the course of 3 or 4 hours to share encouragement and well wishes. And a lot of these people haven't seen me since I've been showing, so there were a lot of tears. I think I'm not typically emotional, but pregnancy does that to you. And it was a really, really special day. And honestly, I'll probably remember that more than had we had traditional baby shower.
Mm-hmm.
Along with that video that you made for Scott and I, which was also an extremely special thing that you did. You emailed our friends from around the world and asked them if they would share some words with Scott and I, and shared that with us. And I sobbed through that entire thing as well. So it's been really, really challenging to not, be with people that we love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think for me, and I mentioned at the outset that this is a sad day, and I'm giving the eulogy of a friend at his funeral at 3 p.m. today, my friend Jerry Redfern. He was 84 years old, a great lawyer, practiced at the same law firm for 50 years, and just an amazing philanthropist and community leader. And so I've known him my whole life. Our parents were friends, and my dad and he were in law school together. Anyway, so I'm giving his eulogy at 3. I'm not finished with it, which is the way I operate. I've been working on it for 2 weeks, but I'm going to overdo it. But one of the things is I was able to visit with him before he died about 3 weeks ago, and he had cancer. But one of the things that I have learned about this time, that we're in with Corona, is that I lament the fact that I couldn't spend more time with him. And, I was trying to be safe. I am trying to be safe because I want to be with your baby in August. And so I was trying to balance those things and visiting with him. And it really, I'll say there's a little bit of anger there, at the whole situation, that I just couldn't have what I wanted and be able to do both. And, I've thought recently that as Jerry died, his journey, he's sort of past Dreamy, your little baby on the way, she's coming here and he's going there, so to speak, and they sort of passed each other. But
Dreamy's the nickname, by the way.
Her nickname, that's because your mom had a dream about her and she calls her Dreamy. And so, right. Yeah. And, but anyway, so it's really made me think about how I miss being with people who, especially, one of the things that has really changed me in my life, and I believe to be a calling, is to pray for people who are sick and who are suffering. And I do that every day. But being with them and to be able to hold their hand, that is something that I've really, really, really missed. And the other thing that's been a big surprise to me is that I've noticed that my fears have become more pronounced, and especially lately. And I don't know if other people have felt this, but it's kind of weird. I'm absolutely aware of it, and when it happens, I think to myself, "Oh boy, you freaked out a little bit, maybe too much, more than you might have otherwise freaked out." And the best example I can think about this is even just like last Friday, I came home from work and your mom was like, "Do you see anything different about our backyard?" And we've talked on this Facebook Live before. I don't like snakes. Okay. I know that's a black snake. There's going to be a bunch of people. That's a perfectly fine snake. No, it's not. Okay. I mean, I didn't kill it, but it's not fine to me because I don't like snakes. And so I realized, wait, here's what's happening. My fear of snakes is even more pronounced. And I I felt my heart, like pout,
Yep.
whatever that's called. And I'm not ashamed to admit it. I mean, I'm just saying that my fears have become, not just that, other fears have become more pronounced.
At least that wasn't the green mamba from Maya school from a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I mean, that thing was deadly and could have killed either one of us or both of us. But I don't know. I've just seen that. The other thing I would say too that I've noticed recently is in the last 2 weeks and since George Floyd's death is I have felt my 20 years of criminal law practice just come rushing back into my mind, and it's occupied a lot of my thought lately. And that was an old life for me. It was then, and this is now, but it's been a challenge because I've literally probably talked to 5 lawyer friends in the last 2 weeks and said, I'm still a lawyer. I mean, I keep my license active, and just I'm literally thinking, okay, what can I do? Do I need to do something with my experience and practice? And even though it's been a long time, and I'm resisting that because that's not me right now. But I had a lot of experiences on the other side of law enforcement for many, many years. And I've seen a lot of these things myself. I've experienced them as an advocate, for people. And that has just come flooding back. And that's been a surprise to me. It's really, really come rushing back in a way that nothing else has triggered it like that in the last 14 years. So last week, I'm a member of the Missouri Bar Association, and I did join their Access to Justice Committee. I don't know what that will be or whatever, but it's something. So anyway,
I mean, I can relate to that. I have long had a appreciation for demonstrating and protesting and civil disobedience, and have been attending protests and marches and you name it, really since I was a teenager. And I've wanted to join in the last couple of weeks. And I felt like for me, being 8 months pregnant, that it's not the best choice. And that's been a struggle. So I've been, challenging myself to look for other ways that I can contribute and be engaged. And because I felt this pull, I mean, I've literally had conversations with Scott many times where he said, I just really don't think that that's a great idea. So I've had to, be creative in other ways that I feel like I can contribute to this movement. But I know that we're also getting close to our time here.
We are getting close, and I know we didn't have a ton of questions or a couple of things and some comments. But before we wrap up, I just want to say you're not going to believe who just joined in. Sherry Page is watching. She was one of our very first customers. 14 years ago. And
I love seeing Sherry.
I mean, she's been, talk about an advocate. She's been our advocate for so many years. So I guess we will wrap it up. I hope we can do this again in 2 weeks. And I think we might have a special guest join us. I won't say who yet, but it'll be really fun. And we're just counting down the days till Dreamy is here. And so appreciate everybody's comments and thoughts about my friend and his death. And I'll try to honor him with some words today at 3. And thank you for mentioning that. And so anyway, I hope you guys have a great day. I hope you have a great weekend. I know there's a lot going on, but we have things that we can be grateful for. We have choices that we can make in how we carry our own lives, and we can make memories. It's really special because tomorrow is my 33rd wedding anniversary. How your mom has stayed with me all these years. I mean, she should receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom or whatever you call it. But
Honor.
Honor. Yes.
I
But 33 years ago. So it's a special weekend for us, and we'll enjoy some time down by the creek. And anyway, so thank you guys for joining us, and I hope we'll be back in 2 weeks. And thank you for supporting us. And I'll talk to you later, Lawren. Bye.
All right. Bye.